My name is Hugh Leeman, and you're listening to part one of episode one on my best friend and Delta River blues musician, Blue.
My name is Benny Blue Priest. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I play blues. I play Delta blues.
The first time I met Blue, I'm walking down the street in the middle of the night, and I'm with my then girlfriend, and we're on Market Street, just off of 6th Street, which is known infamously as Skid Row in downtown San Francisco. And we're just about at the part, maybe 50 meters shy of the part where there's the legendary Warfield concert hall. And in the distance, kind of noise passing through this crowd of people that have gathered around him, you hear this. And so I kind of rush up there. But just as I get up there, he's done. He's packing up his tip bucket, he's grabbing his harmonicas, and he's putting it all on what he called the mule, which was his bicycle. And I go up and I'm like, hey, look, man, I'm an artist, and I would love to paint your portrait. Can I take a picture of you? And he's kind of looking at me like, I've never had this request before. So he's like, sure, get out your camera. Well, this is back in the day when it was really uncommon for anyone to carry a cell phone for the most part. And I didn't carry a cell phone, and so I said, look, man, I don't have a camera, but my studio is like a half block up the street. And he's like, well, look, if you get up there and grab your camera and come back and I'm still here, sure, you can take a picture. But if not, well, then see you around. So I run up the street, I run into my place, and I can't find my camera. I don't even turn the lights, and I'm kind of searching around frantically. Finally, I find the camera, and it was one of these older enough cameras that actually had AA batteries put in it. So I pop the little battery door on it, pop it in my hand, the batteries pop out, and they're dead. So I go rushing around some more, and I'm looking for my electric razor. So I pop the batteries out of my razor, put them into the camera, and they work. So I run back down the stairs, run down the street, and he's still there, standing there talking to my then girlfriend. Well, I take a few shots of him under this, yellow street light, kind of ambient. It's horrible lighting. But I take a few shots, and he's like, all right, man, I'm off. And he rides off on his bike into the night. And I go back to my studio, and I put the images on my on my computer, and I start looking at them. And I'm so lit on fire by these images, I do a drawing. Just on a piece of computer paper, because there, my computer's there and my printer's right next to it, and I pull a piece of printer paper out and just do this pencil drawing on a sheet of 8.5 by 11 regular computer paper. Well, I'm so moved by all of this that I decide that I want to make this into a mural. Now, about a month goes by, and in that month, I finally have taken this piece of computer paper that's about 8.5 by 11, and I've run it through a digital architectural plotter printer, which, in simplest ways to put it, it's a gigantic photocopier machine. Or at least that's how I saw it. And so I run this small 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper through there, and I enlarge that drawing to roughly 12 foot by 12 foot. So now I've got this huge pencil drawing of him. And what was so fortuitous about the image is that if it's out of context, which the viewer typically sees it in, you don't know that he's holding a harmonica in his hands and playing the harmonica and singing. So what it looks like is that he's praying. And, here's this guy that's got this Indiana Jones style hat on with literally a metal skull and crossbones on the front of it. So I just love this image. Well, a month has gone by. I don't even remember his name, and I haven't seen him since. He's disappeared into the dark of night into downtown San Francisco. Well, I finally go out to put this mural up on a wall. And I'm in downtown San Francisco, and basically I'm standing up against the wall, adhering this humongous drawing, this 12 foot by 12 foot drawing to the wall. And as I'm doing this, of course, I'm facing the wall, and my back is to the street. And I get about halfway into this process, maybe 2/3 of the way in, and suddenly, over my shoulder, behind my back, I hear these screechy bike brakes. And then I hear the little kickstand go down, and 2 feet step off of this bike. And the person's right behind me, but I don't turn around. And I hear this voice a few feet behind me say, "Holy shit, man, that's me." And so finally I turn around and I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know if you remember this, but we met, and I just get going into all this, and he's kind of like flabbergasted. I mean, who wouldn't be if like you're on your way to your job or whatever, and you see someone putting up a 12-foot by 12-foot mural, hand-drawn pencil drawing mural of you on the city streets. So he's kind of like, what is going on? I was like, yeah, we met like a month ago. I don't know if you remember. He didn't remember. The truth is, I had forgotten his name, and he's really into it. I'm like, hey, it'd be great. I may do some more, another painting of you or something like this. And he takes off. He says, if you ever want to find me, you can find me at the POW cable car turnaround. That's where I play the harmonica every single day.
Well, I ain't never looked good, but you made me actually look kind of decent. He was down here on Stevenson Alley, and he was putting up something up on the wall. I said, God damn, that shit look like me. I was like, wow, man. That blew me out, man. That blew me away. I've enjoyed his company and his artwork ever since that day. I mean, my image is something else, man. The way he put it down, man, it'll probably last a lifetime, I hope my grandchildren look at it.
This was an absolutely beautiful part of my time here and in getting to know the people in my neighborhood.
When I was about 8 years old, I asked my daddy for a trumpet. He's listening to all this Miles Davis, all that jazz and stuff. Louis Armstrong gave me a weird look. He said, what? Where's he? The next day he come home from work, give me one of these harmonicas. And he said, what? As long as you live in my house, you're not going to learn how to play no harmonica. I never understood what he meant. I actually heard somebody trying to learn how to play one. Figure I'm 60 now. I started when I was 8. That's a long time.
The beautiful thing about Blue, amongst many, is that he not only played the blues, he truly lived it. I mean, he played for tips at the POW cable car turnaround for more than 20 years. Day in, day out, rain or shine. One time, this is what he told me when I asked him how he came to acquire the nickname Blue. Do you know why they called you Blue?
I was always hanging out with. Every day was playing blues. That's where I was at. From the time I could get off these two little legs and move, I moved to the music. If somebody in my vicinity was playing any kind of music, I was there. Forever. I'd break out of baby pants, run to me. I was crazy, man. People been calling me that for years.
After more than 12 years doing art projects together, one day I get a phone call, and I don't even recognize the voice on the other end of the line. It's kind of like, you hold me out. And I'm like, I'm sorry, who is this? Because it's from an unknown number. The voice is like, to say when somebody wakes up and kind of has a cold and that how their voice sounds like that, but even more. And finally, as the voice gets warming up, I realize it's Blue. And as we get to talking, he tells me he's at the VA hospital here in San Francisco. He was a veteran of Vietnam War. And he said, hey man, I'm out here at the VA hospital, and I just found out I got a few months left to live. And so that really hits me, and we get to talking, and I'm just listening, and finally I say, hey, what can I do for you? And he tells me, which wasn't a surprise, but he says, hey, I want you to get me some Reese's peanut butter cups. Not the like dried out brand Reese's. I want you to go to Whole Foods and get me the oily peanut butter Reese's cups. You know what I'm saying? And we used to go to baseball games, so I knew, and he would bring a bunch of those, so I knew exactly what he was saying. But he says, the other thing I want, man, the last thing I want to talk to my son. And in more than a dozen years hanging out with Blue, I had never heard about his son. Before we even got off the phone, I started looking through an online database I had found. And as Blue's on the other end of the line, I'm asking him questions about how I could potentially find his son through the mother. So I'm asking him things like mother's maiden name, last known address, and the questions I'm asking are basically being prompted by the website database that I'm looking in. So finally I get all that information plugged in, and the search results in South Florida for a person by this name are something like 837 names. And I'm like, this just seems impossible. So I tell him I'm going to keep looking. I'm going to start going through those names. And we get off the phone. And as we get off the phone, I start kind of backtracking in my mind the absurdity of the way I was looking for this person and why I was going through this database. See, Blue had told me that his son's mother was a very well-known and successful attorney in South Florida. Honestly, I didn't believe him. I thought that it was a fish story at best. But then I thought, who was I to disbelieve his story? So I thought, if it's true, and she's a well-known lawyer in South Florida, wouldn't she be online? One Google search later, and her name was the first one atop the list. So I call the phone number. Immediately a secretary picks up and says, "Good afternoon, sir. What can I do for you?" I said, "I'd like to speak to so-and-so." She says, "Okay, do you have an appointment?" No. "Are you a client?" No. "Okay, what is this regarding then?" It's personal." Okay. Why don't I just take a message and I'll give it to her?" I said, "You know what? Is there a voicemail or something?" No, I write the messages down and I'll hand it to her." Okay, well, here goes. So I told her, "Hey, look, I live in San Francisco, California, and my best friend is the father of her son, and he hasn't seen his son in 25 years. He's just been diagnosed with cancer and has a few months left to live, and he'd like to speak to his son before he dies. And the best way that we know of to contact the son is through his mother, which is your boss." And of course, she's like kind of dumbfounded. She says, "Oh, okay, I'll have her call you within an hour." Within an hour, sure enough, my phone rings. And there she is. And she's, of course, anyone would be kind of dumbfounded and is like, "Is this true?" It was the first thing she said to me. I said, "Yeah, absolutely," and we kind of check out some information, and it was like, "Yeah, this is him." And she's like, "Where are you?" And I tell her, and the conversation goes on for about 20 minutes, and she was incredibly sweet, as anyone could be in such a position, and kind of confused, of course, and dumbstruck. And then finally I say to her, "I understand that I don't understand the complexity of this situation, but if there's anything I can do to help facilitate dialogue, even if it's just a phone call between him and Blue, I'm willing to do whatever to help that happen." And we hang up. And I'm thinking, man, it'd be incredible if, his son would just give him a call. But who knows how intense and challenging a position emotionally this would be for his son, let alone physically, assuming he's on the other side of the country. About 24 hours go by and my phone rings. And now I've got the VA hospital where Blue is in hospice care saved on my phone. So I know it's him, and I pick up and I say, "Hello?" And he doesn't even greet me. He just says, "He's awesome, man. He's awesome, and I want you to meet him. And of course, I was like, who? He's like, my son. I'm like, your son? Did you talk to him? He's here right now. He had just felt like, this incredible burst of energy and enthusiasm and excitement, and it was absolutely beautiful. So I go out to the hospital and I meet his son. And, in any situation, it might be a bit awkward, but particularly in this one. And it wasn't awkward so much as there was kind of like this. Now in the last 24 hours, I've heard so much about you. You've heard about me, but we've never met. And who exactly are you? Is what I would be thinking if I were him. And Blue has shown him all these projects we've done together and paintings I've done of him. And finally, it's time to push Blue down in his wheelchair to go to California Pacific Medical Center, so CPMC, to get his radiation treatment. And we get a pint of ice cream out of the freezer. And his son and I push him down into the elevator, and we go down to the street. And we get on the van, and there's kind of small talk on the way over there. And finally, when we're sitting in the radiology kind of waiting room, anytime you're in a cancer ward of a hospital, you're not there because it's good. It's inevitably because of something has gone wrong. And so it's already an uncomfortable place to be. And then on top of that, you're talking about a doctor's waiting room, which is always awkward, as everyone sits there acting like there's some sort of privacy, and there's this equal shared awkwardness. And he's sitting right next to me, Blue's son, and Blue gets wheeled off to his radiation appointment. And that's when his son, just out of nowhere, starts telling me the last moment that he remembers seeing his father. And it was beautiful, a beautiful way to open up conversation, but at the same time, it was heartbreakingly beautiful. And you couldn't help but feel empathy for the vulnerability this human being was showing. Well, after the appointment, Blue comes back, and the three of us are getting ready to leave, and he says, no, I want to go up to the top. I want to show him the view. Well, I knew well the view because Blue had a partner for the last handful of years that had died about 1.5 years to 2 years before. When she was in the critical care unit, she was in the critical care at CPMC, the hospital we were at, on the top floor. CPMC, for context, is kind of close walking distance from the Haight-Ashbury district. And it's a fairly tall building kind of up on a hillside, so it has an incredible view. And if you go to the very top floor, at the end of the hall of the critical care unit, it's nothing but a wall of windows that looks out to the ocean, to the mountains of Marin, the bay, and of course the Golden Gate Bridge. It's absolutely stunning view. And so the three of us walk down the hall, pushing him in a wheelchair. So 2 of us walk in, he's in the wheelchair, still sipping on his melted ice cream, his chocolate s'mores flavored melted ice cream, and we get to the end of the hall. And there's this beautiful silence where the view takes over, and you begin to realize that this is the moment where you would show someone where you had worked or what you had done with your life. And this is a part of where he had been, waiting on a loved one. His partner, who had spent so much time in critical care there before she finally passed away. And so we're standing there looking out this window at the ocean and the Golden Gate Bridge and so on. And in the background, you're hearing beep, beep, like automatic breathing machines from patients who are behind us. And kind of startlingly, no one's coming up to us to say, hey, you can't really be here. So finally, we get ready to leave, and we're pushing the wheelchair back down the hallway. And as we wait for the elevator, Blue kind of looks down at his son's feet and says, man, you got your mama's feet. And his son looks back at him and is like, look at you, man. Brown shoes, brown pants, brown shirt, brown hat, brown skin. Hell, you even got a brown last name. And they, they were kind of like this, like two old friends all of a sudden, the tone of it. And we all just start dying laughing as the elevator opens up. We get on and go down to the street. Once we get down to the street, Blue has a request, what he wants us all to do. In his mind, what he would call a San Francisco tradition. Blue is sitting in his wheelchair, and I'm sitting on a park bench next to his son. And as we're sitting there waiting on the bus, me next to his son right next to Blue in his wheelchair, he says, I want to show you my city.
I don't believe in rent. I don't pay rent. I live in a tent. I like it like that. It's like simple. I can pull up, put on my bicycle, which I call a mule. I keep moving. That's how I go.
Over the next few months, we'd all hang out together a few more times. His son crossing the country back and forth again and again to meet his father before his final departure. I sent a print of the first painting I ever did of Blue to his son, which is it's a part of his house now. It hangs on the wall of his place today. That painting is the image on the screen. I want to say thank you to Blue for being a beautiful part of my life, to his son for being an incredible human being, and perhaps above all to the mother that raised him so well, the mother who I've only ever met on the phone from across the country. Thank you so much to all of you. You've improved the quality of my life. Thank you.